Here's how to spot supply and demand zones in the futures markets. First off, what is supply and demand? Well, first thing, that is one of the key driving forces behind price action, right? Supply basically refers to an area or spot in time where a lot of sellers, for example, got interested in market, stepped in and drove price lower. The same can be said about demand zones, and that will just be the opposite from the selling side of things, where a lot of buyers stepped in at a point in time and drove price higher again. Now, the thing with supply and demand zones, price will quite often return to those areas, find resistance or support, and quite often get reversals from that a second time around. Now, those make for really good trading opportunities. The thing is, where a lot of newbie traders actually get a little bit confused, and by all means that can be a quite confusing subject, is how do you actually manually draw supply and demand zones? As the name suggests, supply and demand zones are not just like a line of resistance or support which lies at the specific price, but rather a zone, right? So it's got an upper limit and a lower limit. Sometimes these zones can be quite big and small. Now, there'll be a lot of people out there, or traders, that will tell you that there's one specific way to draw a supply or demand zone, but either way, it can be quite a confusing subject. So let's, for example, look at a chart over here. I've got the set on the NASDAQ, and I'm just going to use a 5-minute time frame. Now, we can clearly see that there were 2 points here in the market where we had a significant incline and a significant decline. This will probably be a really good area to draw a demand zone in this case. The supply zone will always be drawn on the top, and the demand zone at the bottom, right? So if, for example, we look at these candles, let me just blow this up a little bit. Typically, what traders will tell you is you've got to somehow incorporate, let's say in this case, those wicks over here. And let's see at which was the candle that actually started this move to the upside, and that would potentially be it over there. And you can draw a demand zone over there like that. Alternatively, people will look if there are a few candles that had a few highs and lows lying at the same level, and they could adjust that, for example, at these 2 little candles over here, and say that that is your demand zone. So there's definitely going to be a bit of subjectivity involved here as how to draw your demand zones. The same thing goes for supply zones. Let's look at this area over here. People will say use the high prior to this decline, and in this case, for example, it could be that you could draw a supply zone incorporating this entire sell-off candle here. It's almost like a bearish engulfing candle. Or would you use that as your supply zone? So, wherever you get your resources from how to draw supply and demand zones or that info, it can get confusing as to how to do this properly. This is why I like using the NinjaTrader's supply and demand zone tool suite, called the Supply and Demand Zone Pro. And what that does is automatically draws the supply and demand zones for you. And very important here is that we're not just simply looking, or these demand supply zones aren't simply drawn by looking at a candle formation where a sell-off, or let's say a bounce or bump up started from, but instead it looks at volume as a key indicator as to where exactly to draw these zones. So these zones are identified where supply and demand are basically out of balance, and are calculated by using volume, blocks of volume, and order flow activity, which is extremely important to use. And then these zones can be automatically identified way more accurately then you could go and draw it, right? And expels that confusion of exactly what highs or lows, wicks, and whatever to use. So volume is a very important aspect of trading, regardless of what time you obviously trade or time frame you're trading. So using those calculations for drawing supply and demand zones make it way easier. You can see on my chart, for example, recently we actually had the NASDAQ move into a previous demand zone. Now, on that previous chart that I've shown you here, just bring that back again. this is that same area. Let me just move myself out of the way. You could have drawn manually a demand zone over here, but in this case you can actually see this is the same low over here. There was actually a demand zone from way back where price moved into and had a strong bounce to the upside. Now if you were a scalper or just day trading, these would have produced a very nice opportunity for you to trade to the upside, for example, if you wanted to take a reversal trade. The software will also tell you the width of the actual zone for whatever market you're trading. You can also set it to give you the upper and lower limits of those width, the prices of where they reside. And as things happen, whatever time frame you want to be using, as there's an imbalance picked up by the software, these zones will automatically go and plot, and they make fantastic areas to trade from, especially when they get retested. Here's a really nice example. This is again just on the NASDAQ. There was an instance here where a supply zone printed. And again, this is on a 5-minute, could be on any time frame. Price moved lower, and a good example how price retested that area and got a rejection down from the downside again. Right, so it makes it really useful for day traders, scalpers, or any time frame really. We got traders using this in higher time frames as well. So just a much easier way for you to more focus on actual trading than trying to go and figure out how to manually draw these supply and demand zones. And the software can do all that for you. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you like this indicator, want to know a bit more about it, please check out the link in the description and consider joining our NinjaTrader's Fast Track program. Thank you very much. See you in the next one, and goodbye.